Hey, friends, welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've had a chance to sit down and talk to you about our story and kind of share some of our journey. The past few weeks have been crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy, but it's slightly slowed down a smidgen. I know the next few weeks are going to get real busy again as we wrap up the school year for the next several months. So I wanted to make sure, though, that I saw this project through and finished up. And so this will be the last kind of installment of our story, and just my sharing my experiences with you guys. So the first video, I kind of talked about our why and how important it is to establish that for yourself and for your campus, um, or your classroom if you're a teacher watching this. The second thing I shared with you, it's been a long day, is kind of what to expect from the process and so that some things that kind of took me by surprise maybe or wasn't expecting. And then the last thing I shared, from the kind of principal perspective, was blend yourself. That's my number one piece of advice to anybody who wants to start this journey. Start it yourself, with your PD, with your staff. Lead that initiative by modeling it. And so the last piece I wanted to share was kind of about the planning part of the journey. Um, so you can have a why, but not have a clear path forward, and you're going to be stuck feeling great and excited, but never get anywhere. Or you have the opposite where you have your clear path forward, but you have no why, nothing pushing you. And so when the going gets tough, you're going to bail, or it'll be easy to kind of go off rail and go in a different direction altogether. And so, when I think about the journey piece, this was kind of a big, I don't know, not a shocker for me, but what makes this piece so important to consider is um, how you take a big idea and break it into bite sized chunks, and in a way that communicates a very clear vision, a very clear path, um, an incredible future for your campus, but yet doesn't overwhelm your staff. Um, and here's what I mean by that. So, back to school rolls around. I have flipped my learning. I've increased teacher agency in my learning. I modeled menus. I modeled like self-selected learning, all those things. I mean, that was a labor of love. And if you want it, I will share it with you because that was a lot. But it was important to me to do it. And I spent time with my teachers really talking about where I saw our school headed and the vision I had for the student learning experience. Um, and that's all great. Super, I mean, you've got to do that stuff. What I wasn't ready for were for the teachers like me. So I'm one of those people, how I talk about eat an elephant one bite at a time. Now I'm like, just shove it in there. Let's just get as much of that elephant in as we can get, and let's do it all. And we're gonna do it all perfectly. We're gonna run ourselves ragged, trying to get all of it done, and it's all gonna be amazing. A lot of my teachers on my campus are like that. And I didn't realize it until we started doing this. Because there's a very big difference between these two statements. Here they are. The only thing we are focused on this year is our TEKS tracking and assessment cycle. That's statement one. Statement two. The only thing we are focused on this year is our TEKS tracking and our assessment cycle. Everything else is gravy. You don't need to worry about anything else. Don't focus on anything else. This is the one thing we've got to perfect, and we'll worry about our next steps later. Okay. In my mind, saying the first statement communicated everything that the second statement did. except that it didn't. And so I had to learn to really, really, really reel their attention and their focus into that one bite-sized chunk because they wanna do it all, and that's what I love about my staff. They wanna do it all, they want it all to be amazing. But this is the one most important thing we've gotta focus on. So if you can't do this one thing and blend or and digital content or and a menu or and a playlist, then forget the playlist and the menu and digital content and focus on the one thing. Um, I had to give them permission to do that. I didn't think I would I mean, that made no sense to me. But for whatever reason, and probably because my staff, they're amazing and they're pleasers and they wanna do it all and do it right, I had to give them permission to not do it all right now. And so just be aware of that. Like, yes, paint your vision. They've gotta know where they're going. They've gotta be inspired, and know that, this step leads and builds on to the next step. But just be prepared to give them permission to focus only on this step and make sure that this step is reasonable and a bite-sized chunk. And so one of the strategies I learned this past last week, was ask, give. And I um, never thought about this, um, as explicitly. Okay, anyways, as I did. But the CA group is a group here in Texas that kind of consults with blended learning initiatives. And they did a training on student agency, and a portion of that was Ask Give. And it really hit me. I mean, it really caused some self reflection. And so basically, what you're doing is, what are you asking teachers to do? Or as a teacher, what am I asking my kids to do? And then what am I giving them to equip them to do it? You see what I'm saying here? So I'm asking you to track student data. How am I equipping you? Am I equipping you with time? Am I equipping you with resources? Do you have a clear process? Um, do you know how to track data? Am I equipping you with conversational models to have with kids? All those pieces. What am I giving you to successfully complete what I've asked? And that exercise, I was convicted. I mean, I feel like, I do a pretty decent job at supporting what I ask from my teachers, but there are some things that I'm like, oh, I could have done that differently and could have given them a little more to help them be a little bit more successful. So maybe I could have chunked it a little bit more or been more explicit or overly explicit about this is our one focus, to free them from taking on too much. Um, a perfect example is I told my cohort one, I said, if you guys start feeling overwhelmed, just let me know. We can I can give you some extra planning days. I never heard from them. In fact, the one time we did talk about it, it was, it's not the blended learning that's driving us crazy or that we're struggling with, it's everything else. But what I should have said if I had done my ask give is, you need time, so I'm going to proactively give you time. So that's a great exercise as you portion out your journey and as you start each phase of your journey to really think about what is that one thing I'm asking them to do and how am I going to equip them to do it in all aspects of equipping. Um, the other piece that I would recommend when you map out your journey is, and there may be people out there who disagree, and that's okay, but really avoid putting like concrete dates to it. And here's why. Because for me, it's important that we have very methodical, authentic change. And I don't feel like that's a process you can rush. And for whatever reason, putting an expiration date on it heightens the feeling of anxiety or the stress level because that date is slowly getting closer and closer, and man, I'm so far from where I'm supposed to be. Leaving it open-ended with having mental dates in mind kind of took the burden off of my staff. So I said, "Okay, here's phase 1, TEKS tracking, student agency, dipping our toes in that idea and our assessment cycles. We're gonna spend as long as it takes to get that piece down and cemented before we start and add on anything else. Once we feel good and solid there, then we'll start phase 2. So phase 2 could start in March, or it may not start until November of next year. Um, but knowing that they have time to really perfect that piece of the craft is important. And there's not a rush, even though in your mind as a principal, you're thinking, okay, we got to get moving. I can equip them and encourage them and move them without putting a date to it. And so, just kind of be thinking about that as well when you start mapping out that journey and thinking about realistically how long is it going to take to implement this aspect of our vision and dream. Like for me, one of our phases is on personalized learning. That's not going to be something accomplished in a semester. That piece right there may take a year or 2 or 3 to really, really secure, because it's very different to plan for a beginning group, an on-level group, and an extension group. That's one level of differentiation, and that's kind of our focus going into the next phase of our learning. But that's very different from saying there are 22 levels of differentiation, or there are 22 different individual paths for these kids, and really getting to the kid level, not the group level of differentiation. That's going to take some a lot of thinking and planning, and a lot of ask give analysis of the process, because um, that's just it's a mind shift. It's a great mind shift, but if you go too fast, you will lose people along the way. And you will be going 100 miles an hour to the left, and they're stuck looking to the right. So you really have to balance the pace and the speed to the needs of your staff, um, to what they're capable of handling and managing, not just day to day, but emotionally, psychologically, because it is a shift for them. Um, and so that'd be the other piece, is just to really be patient and really focus on the phase versus the exact deadline that we're going to be masters at this. So that's all I have for today. If there's any questions that you have, anything you're wondering, don't hesitate to leave a comment or ask a question. I'll be happy to visit and share that with you. If you're interested in seeing how we ran our back to school PD, I don't mind sharing those documents with you as well. And if you're interested in learning about TEKS tracking or our student data processes, I have several videos that I put into S'mores for our staff development that I'd be happy to share with you too, so you can get an idea from our student perspective and from a teacher perspective how that process works. So that's all I have. Have a great day. Bye.